Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on doing the Vincent textbook tutorials on macOS using the preferred tool set for our course. And I'm recording this in the spring semester 2024, and this is currently associated with the assignment in week 2 called the Vincent blog assignment. Okay, and so let's get started. So what do I mean when I say the Vincent book or the Vincent textbook? Well, it's called Django for Beginners. And the version that we want is the version that's been updated for Django 4.2. Now, it turns out that we're not using Django 4.2 in the current semester. We're only using 4.1 because that's the most harmonious with our tool set. But you don't want an old version of this book. There's an older version of this book that was done for version 4.0, and material has been added, and assignments have migrated from chapters to chapter, and so you want this version of the book. It's not as expensive as a lot of textbooks are, and if you buy it through the author's website, link on the syllabus, um, then some number of further updates will be downloadable when they are issued. For instance, I bought the version of the book that was updated for 4.0, and then a couple of months ago when I wanted to download this, I just went to um, the publisher's website. I think it's called gumroad.com, and I logged in and I was able to download this. So it's not a big expense, and it's certainly worth doing. Okay, so that's what we mean by the book. Okay, so what are we doing here? Well, let's take a look at the um, let's take a look at the table of contents. Okay, we're primarily going to be looking at chapter 1 initial setup. Okay, and I'm gonna show you a little thing from chapter 2, because that's another thing that he shows you how to do that I want you to see how to do with our tool set. Okay, now the assignment that people are going to be doing in the current week is way up on chapter 6. Okay, and why did I pick that one? Well, that's it doesn't use all the Django features, but it uses a lot of them. Okay, and the purpose of this tutorial that we're doing is to give you quick experience with Django so you can see, so you can have a full experience, because the big tutorial that we do in the course is called EasyU, Easy University, and we work on it like for 10 weeks. And it just doesn't work to not see the big picture until the end of 10 weeks. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the big picture by doing this blog app in chapter 6. Okay. Today, we're going to be going over chapter 1 and seeing how to do the stuff that he does with our tool set. He works at the command line with pretty much all free tools. Okay, and that's a little painful. Okay, so we'll talk about this, but this isn't the exact tool set that we're going to be using. Chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5 are smaller tutorials in which you don't build a appreciable sized app. I'm going to suggest you do a couple of these. I'll tell you why. When you get to chapter 6, And perhaps we can just go to chapter 6. Okay. When you get to chapter 6, when he asks you to do stuff, he doesn't kind of baby you along. He sort of assumes that you've done some of these earlier chapters where he spoon fed you the instructions on what he wanted you to do. So if you just jump in on chapter 6, I think it's going to seem too abrupt. Okay. On the other hand, if you do 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then do 6, it's going to seem maybe a little too repetitive. So choose your poison here. I think I did 2, 3, and 4. You might want to do 2 and 3. I don't know. If you're working on 6 and it seems like he's asked you to do something that he hasn't explained, look back at 2, 3, 4, and 5 and look for a more beginner-like explanation. Okay? All right. So, having said that, let's jump back to chapter 1. Okay? So, chapter 1. All right. So, if you're just using freely available tools, you're probably doing most or all of your work at the command line for the environment that you're in. Okay? Now we're going to do some of our work at the command line. And on the Mac, the command line is a program called Terminal. Okay? And I have an icon for that um, down in my dock. And how did I get it? So if I click on this terminal icon, terminal will come up. But if you don't have one, you can go over to Launchpad. Okay, and then within Launchpad, you want to find. Um, it's funny, things don't seem to be where I expect them to be. Probably because we've installed too many things. I think it's a group called Other. Let's see if we can find it. Okay. Well, I'm going to pause. I'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, I found it, and it is called Other, and it looks like this. I've just installed so many things on my laptop that it's on the last page of these. So you click on Other, and then you click on Terminal. Okay, and you're going to want to save that in your dock. Okay, so that's when we're working at the command line. Here's how we're going to work, right? And what are we going to do at the command line? Well, when we're working at the command line, we're going to work here. But the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to activate the Anaconda virtual environment that we built for this course. And we did that in a previous tutorial. And the virtual env that we built is called E4 Trainer Django course. So if you haven't done that and you haven't played that tutorial, go back to probably in week 1 under computing setup and you'll find that. And do that, then come back here. The other thing that we probably want to do is we probably want to be working with the Anaconda cheat sheet called the Conda cheat sheet, and we have a link for that in the weekly schedule where we did the computing setup. Okay, so here's my copy here. So if you want to know how I come up with all these commands for Anaconda, I'm not super good at remembering them. That's why I use Conda cheat sheet, and you should download one for yourself. Okay, so if I want to know which virtual environments I have, I can type in conda space env space list, and it'll think a bit and give me a list. And you can see I do have one called E4 Trainer Django course. Okay, and then here on the Mac, when you want to clear your window in the command line environment, you can type in clear, and that looks better. And now, if we want to activate that virtual end, we can type in conda space activate space E for trainer Django course. Okay. And if we want to know what packages are installed in that virtual env, we can type conda space list, and we can see a lot of things. But uh, in the current semester, which is spring 2024, we're using Django 4.1, and we're using Python 3.11. Okay, and again, uh, if you haven't had a chance to create this virtual env, then go back to the computing setup for week one and get that done. In subsequent semesters, the instructions documents that I'm going to have for that computing setup will tell you what versions to install. Okay, and you'll be able to read it off of the instructions. So a year from now, I bet that we'll probably be using, here's my guess. I guess we'll be using Django 5.2, and I bet we'll be using Python 3.12. Okay, now I might be wrong, but that's where I think we're going to be. Okay, so let's go back to the book. Okay, and that must be underneath. There it is. Okay, so he begins in chapter one by telling you how to find and use the command line shell for Windows and Linux and the Mac. Okay, and I've kind of shown you how to do it on the Mac. If you want to try out some of the commands that he has here for the Mac, well, why don't you try them? They should work in our terminal window. Okay. The next thing he says is he wants us to install Python 3. And of course, that's already in our virtual environment. So, for instance, we can see here we've got a Python 3.11. And if we just type Python, it'll start up the Python interpreter, and we'll see, yeah, we've got Python 3.11.5. And when we want to quit the Python interpreter, we type the quit function call, QUIT, and then parentheses and enter, and we'll come back out to the command line. Okay. Um, so then he goes into virtual environments, and he recommends that you use a virtual environment tool called Virtual Env. That's pretty old school, and it comes packaged with Python, so it's easy to get access to. And it's a pretty good tool. There are two reasons why we don't use it, okay? Instead, we're using Anaconda for our packaging, our Python packaging manager and our creator of virtual environments. Two reasons that I like that better. One is that it seems to be preferred by people who are doing data science. And so a lot of people from the iSchool want to go on to do data science work, or they want to go on to take data science courses. And so I would like you to have experience with Anaconda before you get to those. The other problem is that the typical configuration of a Django project, when it's using that virtual env style of package management, is that all the packages get placed in your Django project. And when you zip it up and you try to submit your assignment to Canvas, the file's too big. Okay. And so for these two reasons, that's why we're using Anaconda, and that's why we're not using the tool that he recommends here, even though it's an old school tried and true tool. Okay. Um, he talks about PyPI. It's not called PyPy. There is something called PyPy, PyPy, but this one is called PI for Python Package Index, and this is a whole scheme for um, uh, accessing Python packages and installing them on your machine or installing them into a virtual environment. Um, we don't use it currently, okay? There are some semesters in which we want to get a different version of a package that's not available through the Anaconda folks. And you can actually use um, the PI installer, which is a command called a pip. You can actually use it and install packages from the PI ecosystem into virtual M's that you create with Anaconda. And we've done that a semester or two, but we're not currently doing it. We currently are able to just do plain vanilla Anaconda virtual M's and everything works fine. So that might be something you would do someday, but not something that we currently do. Then he wants us to install Django. Well, it's already in our virtual env, so we don't have to do it. Okay, so we can go past that. Now he wants us to create our first Django project. Okay, and there are two ways to do this, and I'm going to show you both ways. There's the way that he shows, which is at the command line. Okay, and then there's the way where you just open up PyCharm and you ask it to create a new Django project for you. Okay, now for most of the work we're going to do in this course, the latter, where we ask PyCharm to create a new Django project for us, that's going to satisfy us just fine. Okay, however, for the assignments that we're going to do from the Vincent book. And of course, the assignment that we're handing in is the one for the blog um, tutorial in chapter 6. Well, if we want our file structure for our Django project to match what he's doing in the book very closely, then we're going to have to create it at the command line. Okay. All right. So before we see how to create a Django project at the command line, let's just see how you would create a new Django project using PyCharm. Okay, and I've clicked on the PyCharm object, icon down here. And I wanted to do this in a fresh virtual machine, but it didn't want to cooperate. So uh, now we're seeing like all the Django projects on my machine, which is like a lot. I've been accumulating these over somewhere between 5 and 10 years, so there's a lot of stuff here. But um, so you click on the icon to start PyCharm, okay? And if you want a new project, you click New Project, okay? And now you have to pick what kind of project, okay? A lot of times it's easy to skip this, okay? The default is pure Python, just a Python project. But we don't want that. We want the second one, Django. So click on that, okay? And now the location, the directory that it's going to put these things into, yours is probably going to have users, your username, the name of your home directory, which is your username. And yours probably is going to say something like PyCharm projects. Okay, and that'd be a fine place to put it. So let me go find that. Let's you can navigate to the directory that you want. So I'm just going to go to my ID and I'm going to look for PyCharm projects. There it is. Okay, that gets created for you when you do the PyCharm install, and we say open. And so now that's where it wants to put it. Okay. Okay, so what am I going to call this? Um, I think I'm going to call this, just because I've got a lot of names of projects, I'm going to call this our third Django project. So I'm pretty sure I don't want to have one with that name. Now, I've already installed a Git. Now, if I wanted this to be to have a Git repository for the project, I could just check that, but I really don't. This is only a test project. Um, in recent years, PyCharm has had this a checkbox where you can ask it to create a main.py welcome script or program. I find those annoying, so I always leave that unchecked. Okay, and now it asks for interpreter type, and for us that usually means how do we point to our virtual environment. Okay, so interpreter type, we want to take the third one, custom environment. Okay, and then the second line of choices. Do we want to generate new? No, we want to select an existing one. So that's already set. Which type? Conda. All right, now what other thing could have been there? Well, it just has Python. Okay, but there are times when you might have virtual M, for instance, might be there. Okay, we want Conda. Path to Conda. Okay, it's going to know the path to Conda. We're not going to have to set this. Okay, and then which environment do we want? You can usually do this. Click the link for reload environments. Okay, and then use this drop down box. Okay, and I could see I have a lot of them, and they're usually in alphabetical order. Okay, and I have E4 Trainer Django project, and you should have the same one. Okay, now you would think we're done, but we're not. Why is that? Well, we want to make sure this more settings is configured. So before you click in the bottom right to create this, open up more settings. Okay, and make sure this enable Django admin is checked. Okay, template language Django, that's the default. Templates folder templates, that's the default. Application name, we'll talk about Django applications in a couple of minutes, but right now um, that is right now that's okay to be blank. Okay, so that's everything the way we want it. So this has gotten pretty good at proposing defaults that are going to be appropriate for us. And now we click on create. Okay. Now watch, you can see in the middle of the screen here where that says it's installing Django, it's doing some work. So you'd see it doing some work here, and you really can't work with it until that's done. And how long this is going to take is going to depend on a lot of things, including the speed of your computer. Now, my computer is pretty fast. Now the work has shifted to this bottom line: scanning installed packages, scanning files to index. Okay, so when you create a Django project in PyCharm, it does a lot of work. Okay, and you really can't work with it effectively until things calm down here on the bottom line. Okay. The other thing that we see is over on the right side at the bottom, we can always see what our virtual env is. And of course, it's E for trainer. Oh, it says E for trainer Django project. That's not the one that we wanted. So let's click on this again. We want E for trainer Django course. Okay. And then now it's probably gonna do that work again. Yeah. Now it has to import and index a bunch of stuff. Now that seems to be done. Okay, that's pretty good. Um, let's go up here on the left-hand side and look at this navigation panel. Okay, and we have the project. The name of the project is really the name of the high-level directory. And I told it to call it our third Django project, and that's what it called it. Now we're going to get into something that is a difference between the naming of files and directories that you'll get when you create a project with Django, and what the possibilities are when you do it more manually at the command line. This directory that's just inside our project directory has the same name as the project directory. And the best way to describe what this directory is, it has configuration information for the whole project. Okay, so people call this different things. Okay, um, some people um, yeah, use a convention that is used here by PyCharm, that it just repeats the name of your project, and you're to understand, oh, this inside one is for configuration files. Okay. Some people call it config. Uh, um, in the Vincent book, he calls it Django underscore project. Okay, and I've heard it called oh, there's some tutorials that are pretty popular on the web, like the Django Girls tutorial, where they call it my site. I think the thing to remember here is if you want a structure where the name of this configuration directory is not the same as the name of the project, then you need to create that project at the command line. Now you can come back and I'll show you how to do it. You can come back and work with PyCharm on a project that you created at the command line, and I'll show you how to do that. But the real use case for us in doing that is uh, if we're doing one of these projects from the book, okay, um, you'll see that um, well, here he calls the project a Django project, and then he uses a Django project here. But if you go if you go to let's go to chapter 6. If we go to chapter 6, he doesn't do that. I think he calls the project blog. Let's look. Mm, let's find it. Uh, well, he tells us where to do it something, but trust me, he doesn't call them the same thing here. Okay. All right. So let's look at a couple of more things that you can do uh, when you've created a project with PyCharm. So the first thing that we learned how to do is to run the development server. Okay, he's going to talk about that in a minute. What is the development server? Well, um, it is an application server. Okay, so it's a web application server, and it's the development version of one. Okay, this is what we use when we're developing um, Django apps. Do we use it in production? No, it turns out we don't. We use another server. We use one called Goonicorn, for short for Green Unicorn. And why don't we use the development server in production? Well, it has a lot of convenient features for developers that we don't need in production. Uh, it's too slow for production, and it has some features that are insecure in production. Okay, but while we're developing, we're going to be using the development server. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the menu for PyCharm, the top one, and we're going to click on Tools, and then we're going to look for Run Manage Py.task. What if you don't see that? What if it's grayed out? Well, there are two problems that you could have. One um, is that maybe you're not connected to the right virtual environment. Okay. The other thing is maybe these files that are loading and indexing haven't resolved yet. Okay. Um, and then the other thing is if we go up to PyCharm and we go to settings, okay, um, uh, the way that you connect to the virtual environments is under project. So we're going to look for project, and then we pick Python interpreter, and that's how we connect to the VM. Okay, but the other thing that needs to be set is this languages and frameworks, and then you go to Django, and these things have to be set as well. Okay, so there are times that you find that you go up to tools and you try to look for the manage.py console, and it's grayed out, and uh, either you're not connected to your virtual env, or uh, you haven't configured this Django stuff. Okay, and the one that hurts the worst is enable Django support. If that's unchecked, then this is probably not going to work. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of this because everything was set, and I'm going to go up to Tools, and again, run manage, uh, run the manage .py task. Okay, and manage.py is a program that is placed in our project directory when we generate a new project. Here it is, manage.py. And it's a utility program that we're going to use to do a lot of things. Okay, we're going to use it to create a new application. We're going to use it to run the server. We're going to use it to do a database migrations. Okay, and uh, if you're not working in PyCharm and you don't have this handy little manage a .py window, well, then you have to go to the terminal at the command line and type Python space manage.py space command name. Well, here you don't have to do the first two parts because we're already running manage.py. And if we want to say start the production server, we just have to type in run server and enter, and it tries to help us. We have to put enter again, and then it just starts it up. Now, if we wanted to do that at the command line, we would have to type python manage.py run server. Okay, so this is a handy little window to that really saves you a lot of typing. And now you click on the URL, and it's going to open, in my case on another monitor, the Django landing page. Okay, so this would be how you would create a Django project in PyCharm. Okay, and this is a really easy way to do it. The only thing that you can't do is if you want this configuration directory to be named something different from your overall project. I don't know of an easy way to do that in PyCharm. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to create projects at the command line in just a second. So that's how to do it with PyCharm. Okay, and how do you stop the server? Well, you go to this stop button. It says here you can do it with a Control C, but you can click in that window and you can click Control C until you're old and gray, and it won't stop it. And that's just because the code that's running is kind of trapped in this kind of virtual command line panel. Okay, and to stop it, you need to click the stop button. Okay, and then now you come back here. All right, so that's how to do it in PyCharm. Okay, how do we do it at the command line? Okay, well, let's go back to chapter 1 and see what he tells us to do. Okay, chapter 1, first Django project. Okay, so that's where we are. So, he, in this version of the book, he's calling both the project and the configuration directory Django project. So I'm going to show you something a little bit more fancy than that, because there are times when you want to have the name of the project and the name of the configuration directory be different. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a directory with the name of the project, and then we're going to start a project inside of it with this command. Okay, so let's make the directory that we want. Okay, so here I am. I'm just up in my top level home directory. Okay, and so I need to get into the directory where I'm going to put my PyCharm project. So I could say cd for change directory PyCharm projects, all one word. And you can see in my prompt that we're there. And if I do an ls, we can see, well, we've got a couple. This isn't normally where I keep mine. So these are all things I did for demos. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a directory for the project. So let's call it, instead of our third Django project, let's call it our fourth Django project. So make directory, mkdir, our fourth Django project. Okay, and it looks like it works. So we'll do an ls to list what's there. And there it is, our fourth Django project. That's good. And now the next thing that we wanted to do is we want to make that our home directory. So we're going to do that with a cd change directory. So cd to our fourth Django project. And you can see that in our prompt. Okay, so now we're in the new project directory, but it's empty. Just do an ls, and it doesn't show us anything at all. Okay, so let's go back to the book. Okay, and look at this command. Okay, so what is this? Django admin is a part of the Django installation. It's a Django utility program. Okay, start project is one of its commands. Django project is the name that we're asking it to name our configuration directory. Okay, and dot says make it right here. Okay, so it's saying configure a Django project, and then the dot says right here in the directory I'm currently in, and Django project says that's the name I'd like for my configuration directory. So I'm just going to highlight that and copy it with Command C, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do a Command V to paste it in, and that drives me crazy because that's not what I wanted. Okay, so whenever you copy something out of this book, it gives you this, it kind of footnotes it. So I'm just going to do a Control C to break out of that. And now I'm going to do a clear to get rid of that mess. And I'm going to do an ls to show that that fourth Django project directory is empty. And now here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to open up any text editor. The one that I use is called Sublime. And I'm going to paste my text in here. Okay. And then I'm not going to have to worry about all that extra text. So now I'm going to copy it out of there. Okay. Now, is there an easier way to do that? Well, you'll probably figure that out and you'll tell me. But it makes copying, pasting from the book a pain in the ass. Okay, so now if I click on that little gray square and do a Command V to paste it in, I got the real command without all the proper attribution. Okay, so again, Django admin's the name of a utility program that's part of the Django install. Start project is one of its subcommands. Django project is the name that we want for the configuration directory. And dot says build all that in the directory that we're in right now, which is our fourth Django project. So now I'm going to press enter. Okay, and I'm going to do an ls to look at what's here. And you can see the files that we see. Django project is the configuration directory. Manage at Pi gets built. That's the utility program that we use, so it gets built for us. Okay, and then if we want to see what's in the configuration directory, we can say cd Django project. And now we can do an ls to see what's in there. And these are the configuration files. Okay. Now, if you were following the book here, you would go on and keep working at the command line. Okay. And if you want to play with that, feel free. But here's what we're going to do in our class. Uh, we're going to go and we're going to take this project that we built at the command line because we wanted a special kind of a custom name for the configuration directory. Uh, we're going to take that and we're going to open up with PyCharm. Okay. And where is it? Well, it's in PyCharm projects, and then it's called our fourth Django project. Okay, so let's open up PyCharm. Okay, and we want to go up and click on the open button. Okay, and then under my ID, I want to go down and find PyCharm projects. Again, this is my real computer, so it's got a lot of things on it. And so just highlight the PyCharm projects and click open. And it opens it. And that's a mistake. Okay. What did I do? Well, I told it to open the PyCharm projects directory as though that was a project, and of course it's not. And so all the projects that are in there are looking like files within a Django project. So um, I'd like to say you're not going to make the same error, but if you're like me, you will. So, okay, I'm just going to close PyCharm, and it gets me back into this choosing. So, what do I want to do? I'm just going to go to open again, and I'm going to find my way to PyCharm projects. And I am going to double click on that and open PyCharm projects. And now I'm going to find the project that I want, our fourth Django project. Highlight that. And now I'm going to click open. All right, that looks better. So the name of the project, our fourth Django project, and then see the configuration directory is called Django project. Okay. Now, there are people, again, Vincent likes to use the name Django project for the configuration directory. You'll see a lot of tutorials where they use the name my site. I told you that there's a very influential writer in Django who calls it config, okay? But there's a whole bunch of people who do what PyCharm does and just say it's just the same, that the config directory has the same name as your project. So when we go on to work with EasyU, which is our big tutorial, or when you go on to do your final project, I would recommend that you do what I showed you the first time, which is to just create the Django project in PyCharm. And so the config directory in your case then is going to have the same name as the project. But I wanted to show you how to do this because if you want to match up with the examples in the Vincent book, well, then you have to know how to create it at the command line. And of course, once you're in here, you have to say, am I properly configured? Well, down here on the right, it says that we've only got Python 11. We don't have our virtual env. So we can just left click on here and see if we've got something to pick that we're looking for. And let's say we can't find what we're looking for here. So then you would say add new interpreter, pick add local interpreter. And there's a lot of times when you're trying to get to your virtual env that this is the dialog that comes up. Okay, so what kind? virtual env environment, that's what you would have had we used virtual env. But we're not, we're using conda, so pick conda, okay? And it's going to know where the conda executable is. You're going to want to pick from a list. Remember to over here to load environments, okay? That's going to populate that list. And then you ought to be able to take the drop down, okay? And again, you're not going to have all these, but mine is E for trainer Django course. Okay, and click OK. Okay, are we done? Well, we probably are, but let's go check one more thing. Okay, let's go up to the top menu and pick PyCharm and then settings. Okay. And if we wanted to get back to where we just hooked up with the virtual env, you do that right after projects. Now you find project, that's about in the middle. And then you click on Python interpreter. And then this is another place where you can pick your virtual env. Okay, but we've already got that set. The one that we want to look at is languages and frameworks. Okay, and we want to pick Django. And you can see this is already configured. And this is a big improvement. Just a half a year ago, when you came here to do this, you had to fill the whole thing in. Okay, so the good folks at JetBrains who manage PyCharm have done a good job of realizing this is a PyCharm project and setting all the defaults. Okay. It used to be if you created a project at the command line and then you came in and then you needed to configure it, you needed to come here and you really had to set all these. Well, now you don't. Okay. Now, what shows you that you're properly configured? Well, you should be able to go up to the top level menu and click on tools, and you should find the run manage.py task. And again, why might it be grayed out? Well, it might be grayed out because you're not connected to the right virtual env. Or it might be grayed out because we hadn't done that Django configuration that we just took a look at. Okay. Or if you still have action down here in this lower bar where it's trying to load parts of the infrastructure and index it and all that, then this might be grayed out too. But as soon as you have a virtual environment and that Django configuration is done and all of the file loading and indexing is done, then you should be able to click on run manage.py task. If you can't do that, one of those other things are probably wrong. Okay, and here we're just going to do run server. And again, you have to enter twice. And you click on here. And there you go. Oh, sorry, it's on the other monitor. Okay, here we go. Now we've got the landing page. Okay, so in our course, we're going to use PyCharm. I want to use it too because working at the command line is very slow and error prone. Okay. The other thing is that we're going to be using a PyCharm when we grade your projects. So we want you to use it to build your projects. So then when you zip it up and submit it, then we're going to download it and unzip it, and we're going to open it in PyCharm, and we want it to be configured to go. We don't want to be searching all over all that stuff that we just did to configure the project. We don't want to have to do that to grade your project. Okay. And for instance, one of the reasons that we ask you to call your virtual env exactly this, E for trainer Django course, is when things go well and you've actually called your virtual environment exactly that, we can just download your zip file, unzip it, open it with PyCharm, and then we're ready to test. It finds the virtual env, it indexes everything, and boom, we're ready to go. Okay, so that makes, I think it makes it for a good experience for you, but I think it can make it a good experience for everybody. One thing I want to point out that we're not doing a lot with yet is that there's this kind of sub panel down here called Django structure, and I'll show it to you in just a couple of minutes. This has only been in PyCharm since December 2023. And it looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. Right now, the only thing that we could do would be to create an app. Okay. And I'll talk about creating apps in just a minute. So let's go back to the book. Okay. So we created our first Django project. We did the run server with manage.py. We used a special panel for that in PyCharm. It makes it a whole lot easier. And he shows you how to do this at the command line. Okay. One thing I didn't show you is I showed you how to start this manage.py panel. Okay, and why don't we stop this? Okay, and now let's close that panel. There is another thing that you can get right here. Where is it? Terminal. So it has a greater than sign and an underscore. So you click on that and it opens up a terminal. And this is kind of like the manage.py panel, but you can see that your virtual env is activated. You are in your project directory. So if you want to do the same commands that he does at the command line, well, you could just, for instance, if you wanted to start the development server, you could type in Python manage.py run server, enter. Okay, and then we click on the link and it brings it up. Okay, so if you want to do some of the stuff that he shows that you can do at the command line, well, you can do that inside of PyCharm by opening up the terminal. And then, of course, if you want to stop that development server, you really do use a Control C because it really is listening for Control C. Okay. So back to the book. All right. So we've started up the development server. We see how that goes. Now he starts to talk about a lot of other tools that you might want to use, like what text editors you might want to use. Well, and he does talk about IDEs, integrated development environments like PyCharm and VS Code. VS Code is free. There are people who use it for Django. I don't really like it for Django. That's why we're using PyCharm Professional. Okay. Then he talks about installing Git. Okay. Now, in our class, you don't, at least in the current semester, spring 2024, you don't really need Git absolutely until we do the deployment assignment for EZU, which is like 10 weeks away now. Okay. But I think that having Git's going to be a big advantage for everybody. So if you want to read through this and do some stuff with Git, it might be a good thing to do. And then that's the end of the chapter. Okay, so there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about with you, and that's in this chapter 2. He talks about how to create an app. Okay, where are we? There's a lot of good stuff in the beginning of chapter here that just really talks about client server architecture and Django architecture in particular. It's definitely worth the read. Okay. And then if we go along here a bit, he shows us how to create an app. So what's an app? Well, uh, Django app is the collection of programs that runs our Django application. Now, sometimes our application is so big that it's made up of more than one Django app. There are also some Django apps that are built in. There's one called admin. That's the Django admin control panel application. Okay, there's one called auth that does um, uh, authentication and authorization. We're going to be using that. So, for instance, when we do EZU, we're just going to have one app called the course info that we create. I mean, we would do it with something like this. So, if we're going to do this at the command line, okay, uh, we would have to type in Python manage.py. That's our utility program. The subcommand is start app, and he's saying that it's going to be called pages. Okay, so let's go and find one of these projects that we created. And so where are we now? So let's go to let's cd dot dot to go up a level. Our fourth Django project. Uh, I've got that one a little bit messed up right now, so I don't want to go there. So I'll go up again. Cd dot dot up again. PyCharm projects ls. Okay, let's look at our third Django project. Okay, so cd our third Django project. Okay, and ls. And you can see that this is the one that we originally created with PyCharm, because the name of this configuration directory is the same as the project itself. And here's the place where we could as long as we're in the project, we could type Python manage.py start app and then the name pages. So let's just do that. Okay, so Python manage.py start app pages. Okay, let's do an ls. And there's pages. Okay, so these apps are directories in their own right. And then we do a cd pages, change that as our directory, and do an ls. And these are all the programs. They're actually program stubs. We're going to be filling the code in there as we build our application. Okay. Now, I'm going to pause here, and I'll be back in a second, and I'll show you how you do the same thing in PyCharm. So let me do that. Okay, we're back. So I'm going to show you how to create an app in uh, a Django project with PyCharm. So my last example got kind of crowded, so we're going to create a new Django project. So we're just going to come up here and say we want a new project, Django project, and let's call this something like our sixth Django project. Okay. And it's Django project. That's its name. I don't want to check either of these two. Interpreter type custom environment, select existing, type conda. Okay, path to conda is already taken care of. Remember to reload environments. Okay, and then from the drop down, I'm just going to look for E4 trainer Python course, and they should be in alphabetical order. Not Python, Django. E4 trainer Django course, because this is the Django course. And then we want to open more settings and just make sure these things are populated, and they are. And then we're going to click on create. Okay, and you can see that it's installing Django and it's doing the files and everything seems to be set. That's fine. And you can see that both our project and our config directory are both called our 6 Django project. That's fine. And how do we create our app? Okay, normally for us as beginners, we're going to create one app. Okay, so we're going to do it using the manage.py utility programs. The way we do this in PyCharm is we go up to Tools and we run the manage.py task. And of course, that's going to open the panel down here. And we're going to use, in manage.py, we're going to use the start app command, start app space application name. So let's call the first one fiddle. Okay, and then enter. And you're going to see a lot of files get generated and stuff. And when you come back here in your directory structure, you have a directory on the same level as the config called fiddle. And it's got a bunch of .py files in it that eventually we're going to be filling in. These are kind of like code stubs. In fact, if we open one like models.py, we can see it's empty, or views.py. That's empty too. And we're going to be learning how to fill those in. Okay. And then let's say we wanted to create another one called faddle. Okay, so we would just say start app faddle, as in fiddle faddle. And it generated a bunch of files, and we can see that faddle's above fiddle because it's alphabetical order, but the same kind of deal. And there's a directory here for migrations. That's something we do with the database. That's an empty directory. The other thing that's kind of interesting is in this Django structure, it has put the apps in here. And this is, I guess this is supposed to be a way to, it's a way to navigate around these pretty easily. They just added this in December 2023. I've never really used this, okay? But it's interesting to see that when we create our apps, we can see them here. A little bit earlier when I was trying to do the demonstration for this tutorial, there was a link here to generate an app, and I did that, and it kind of worked, but then it didn't work a second time. So I'm going to warn you off of using the link in here to generate a new app. I think clearly what we want to do is we want to we're on the manage.py task and we want to come down here and do a start app. So if I've got one called fiddle, I want one called sticks, fiddle sticks. And it's not stat app, it's start app. Start app. I hate it when it does that. Okay, let's try it again. Start app sticks. Okay, now enter. There we go. We've got sticks up here within the project, and we've got it down here in the Django structure, which I'm going to be learning about in the spring of 2024. I'm going to be learning about it alongside the students. I think this is going to be a cool feature, but so far I don't know much about it. Okay, so that's how we create an app. So let's just take one more look at the book. Okay, which is around here somewhere. Book. I don't know where the book went, so I'll open up another copy of it. Interesting. Opened up another copy of it and I couldn't find it. Here it is. All right. So again, how much of this are you going to do? If you followed along here, could you go all the way to chapter 6 and just dive in? I think that might be a little too fast. Okay. Should you continue on and do all of chapter 2? I do that for sure. We're not going to hand in chapter 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And probably if you did 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and then went to 6, you'd be a little worn out. You'd think it would be repetitive. So use your judgment and do just enough to get you to the point where you feel you're ready for 6. Okay? Now, when we get to chapter 6, I want to remind you that we're going to be calling our project. We're not going to call it just blog. Okay, and how do I know this? Well, I know this because I wrote the instructions. Okay, so if you look at instructions for the blog assignment, okay, and then you go to file and directory naming, it's going to be called surname, given name, blog. So for me, mine's going to be called trainer underscore Kevin underscore blog. Okay. So let's go back to the book. Okay. So the directory is going to be called, mine would be called trainer Kevin blog. Okay. And then we would create the project. We'd do a start project underneath that. And we would call the configuration directory Django project. All right. So what would that look like? Well, let's see me do this. Okay. So let's get back to my command line. Okay, so do a clear. Okay, and I'm down here. I'm way down in pages. So where do I want to go? If you want to go back to your home directory, you can do a CD space and then a tilde. That's next to the 1 on the American keyboard, and it is the the uppercase. So tilde looks like that. So it turns out that tilde is an alias for your home directory on Linux-like operating systems. So you could say ls here, and this is where everything is. And PyCharm projects is in here. So then I could do a cd PyCharm projects. Okay. And do an ls, and there they are there. And now I'm going to create the directory for my blog. So I'm going to do a make directory, mkdir, space, and I'm going to call it trainer, all underscore, Kevin underscore blog. Okay. All right. And now I'm going to change that to my directory. So I'm going to do cd trainer underscore Kevin underscore blog. All right, that's good. If I do an ls, it should be empty. All right. And now, remember back in chapter 2, he showed us the command for how to do a start project. So in chapter 2, this is going to be chapter 2. I'm sorry, it was back in chapter 1, first Django project. He showed us how to do a start project. Okay, so Django admin, start project, Django project. That's going to name our config directory, space dot. Okay, so let's do it. So Django -admin start project Django underscore project space dot, enter. Okay, and let's do an ls. And there it is, Django project. Good. And now I'm just going to switch. I'm going to go right over to PyCharm, right? So now I'm going to open it in PyCharm and start working there, right? So now I'm going to come back and let's close the project that we're in and say we want to open. And we're going to go down and find PyCharm projects. There they are. And there's my trainer Kevin blog. And I highlighted that. Now I'm going to open it. And there it is. And now I can start from here. So my project is called Trainer Kevin Blog. And my config directory is called Django Project. Okay. And of course, I'm not pointing to my proper virtual env. Okay, and the one that I like is add new interpreter, add local interpreter, and then I can just say I want a conda environment and use existing and ask it to load the environment, and then I'll be able to find E for trainer Django course. I really have a lot of these, and say OK. Right? And I'll bet that the Django configuration is OK, but if I go up to tools, I'll be able to run manage.pytask. And that seems to run. And if I want to run the development server, I can do a run server. And I'm going to do this. And that opened up on my other machine. Okay, so that's how to get started on chapter 6, and that really followed on to all the stuff that we learned before. I've gone on for too long here, and I apologize for that. But good luck on the Chapter 6 assignment. If you need some help, come to lab. Glad to help. And I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye bye.